Welcome to Burn the Map. Today we're speaking with Mike Montague. Mike is an operator who runs a boutique agency called Avenue 9. They're basically a human first agency. He's kind of a marketer who codes or technologist who markets. And you can tell from his voice, a broadcaster turned podcaster. He has some of the top 40 DJ radio background and did an early show called How to Succeed with 90 million downloads. Doing how do we use AI to basically build better relationships, which I always like that premise. I think it's a smart way to play. I don't know what the exact answer is, but it's always an interesting path to go. So there's the episode. Mike Montague at Avenue 9. Mike Montague from Avenue 9. How you doing, sir?
Good to be here, my friend. You were on my podcast, and I'm excited to chat with you more.
I wanted to chat more. Obviously, because as we discussed, we feel like the acceleration is accelerating. The whole adoption of AI was dude, for years we felt like we were pushing a string. A ton of people. There was a while in 2022 where we were literally taking AI out of our content, just going, no one wants to hear it. It's smoke and mirrors and everything else.
Wow.
There was a while there where we were going other than being in the brand name, it shouldn't be in any content because people do not react well to it. And then it was everywhere. And now it's almost back to, be careful how you mention it because it polarizes a lot of those conversations. And the reason being, it's clearly effective. Where are you, by the way, as it stands to this? Are we already in the realm of AGI? Is it later this year type of thing? Or is it 20, 30 years out or not even on the horizon from your opinion?
I think it's closer than people think. It's not here.
Yeah.
We may be at a point where it doesn't matter if it's here or not, in my opinion. But I think the next 3 to 4 years are going to be really interesting. I think if we had this conversation on in 2030, I think we would say AGI and in super intelligence is here. This year, I don't think agentic AI and AI just operating on its own is currently here. You and I have both seen enough behind the scenes to know that there's a lot of magic tricks being pulled to make it look like it can kind of do that. But the analogy I used in a blog this week was it's kind of like Santa Claus. And spoiler alert for any kids out there, earmuffs. But, the magic is parents who care. And in marketing, I feel like you can still pull off magic that looks like awesome AI automation if you care enough to do the work first, to build your list, check it twice, find out what people want, and give it to them and at the time and place expected, and build enough trust to show up and they believe in what you do. Great. You can still pull off a miracle Christmas morning. But if none of those things are true, then no, it's a magic trick. It's a sideshow. It's a distraction from what really matters.
Agreed on that. I think that's actually a good distinction to make because I've definitely seen stuff this year where I'm like, I could replace myself. There's it's to your point. I go, I don't think AGI is here. That being said, I will never, even almost week to week, I look at it now and I go, my week last week is not the same as it is this week. And last week is gone forever, right?
Right.
I will never do last week's work ever again. Simultaneously, I go, my work didn't go away. It evolved and it's different and it's very heavily curated and stuff like that.
Right.
Again, it's different. Guiding and steering what we focus on and stuff like that is a bigger and bigger deal every single day. But simultaneously, I go, yeah. We haven't reached stage yet, but I'm astounded at even just you mentioned the agentic stuff, a lot of the tools being accessible, making it really easy to connect everything to everything else happened for sure. I go, that was way more powerful than I think anyone gave it credit. That was a much bigger unlock. That feels pretty damn smart in and of itself, right?
Yeah, and I think what people are kind of worried about or scared of is that this is still in its infancy. This is still only 3 years old. So we're on chapter 1 of this, this AI story, which is wild because we've never seen anything like it before. And I guess maybe the internet was that way. If we look back and this was 1997 and we were waiting a half hour for a picture to download, we would say like, oh, we had no idea where this was going. But yeah, so is this going to look like 30 years from now? I have no idea, but I have a feeling it's a lot like Minority Report and stuff than it is what 1997 looked like.
You went and you trademarked human first AI marketing, right?
I did, yeah.
What did you think? I mean, that's placing a bet. Tell me about that bet. Like simultaneously, I go like, look, you're seeing layoffs and stuff all over the place, right? Meta, what did they plan? Like 20% layoffs to fund, 100 and some odd, 150, 135 billion in AI spend and stuff like that. I mean, to some extent, you're seeing all these signals that are very much people going, okay, cool. It looks on the surface like we don't need humans anymore.
Yeah.
And again, there's definitely that class of people that are saying that, like, oh, we won't even have jobs.
We could probably spend the whole rest of the episode on this question because I've done a lot of thinking about it, and I'm working on my third book around a very similar topic. So I'll give you the quick evolution. When social media came out, I was looking for a book for salespeople on LinkedIn about how to actually get sales, not marketing. Like, let's just join 50 groups, add 1,000 people, post 7 times a day, and hope somebody buys from me someday. But how do I actually really use LinkedIn if I'm a salesperson at an enterprise company to start conversations? How could I use it in sort of, I call now, a human first way, a customer first way? And so I think that will always exist. The human first part isn't necessarily employees or doing the strategy thinking first or putting your customer first independently. It's all of those things. So I did kind of hedge my bet there by saying human first AI marketing means putting the customer first, doing the strategy and the thinking first. And I do believe that employees are an important part of this too, because just my philosophy of business is not solely to get rich, but I'm looking for fulfillment and things here too. And I don't want to do this alone in my basement. I want to do this with other people. So that's one part of it. Another most important part, I think, and then I'll let you respond because I have a third, but there's different types of work. So the marketing part of that is very important as well, which is if you're doing physical labor, hard work equals success. The more miles you drive, the further you get, right? Mm-hmm. Most of us work in intellectual work now, which is a law of diminishing returns. It's like the more you try to use your brain in a day, the more it slows down and you kind of peak. And it's like, you should probably take a nap or step away. Like they've proven in computer code and programmers at Microsoft that if they work more than 60 hours a week for more than 6 weeks in a row, they slow down so much that they actually produce less lines of code per day than somebody who just worked 40 hours a week. So you're actually producing less than if you had just walked away from the screen. And I think that's important as we think about AI, is like there were limits to human work, and intellectual work is different than physical work. We need to take some load off, and we need cognitive load and friction handled in a different way than physical labor. But there's a third type of work, which is emotional work. And this is like sales, marketing, other type of emotional labor, where the more you try to do it and the harder you work, the less likely you are to succeed at it. The more you try to make somebody love you, the less likely they are to fall in love with you. The more you try to sell somebody, the less likely they are to buy. And in counterintuitive things like that and strategy decisions, I think it's going to be a long way. I could be wrong on this. It could be that we just need AGI or super intelligence. But I feel like there's something inherent about marketing that still needs human context in order to be done correctly and well.
I like that hypothesis. That's a good one. And I wholeheartedly agree with you on it. I mean, I always say my cup runneth over, where I barely can register new faces and names anymore and stuff. I have to go to a lot of conferences and stuff like that. And I can still tell you like 22 out of 23 of the people that were in my kindergarten class when I was a kid, like kind of Tommy Mortensen, Emily Nelson.
Have you seen the
Mercedes
research
Wilder.
on this? Like
What?
it's a real thing.
Like
The amount of information we consume now compared
uh,
to the 80s and 90s is like 30 times the information. It's like streaming 8 hours of movies into your brain every single day, the file equivalent, where we used to get a few megabytes of information. We're now getting gigabytes of information downloaded into our brain. We simply can't process it all. And the new current AI research of this year is showing the same thing, that most people who use AI heavily do not free themselves up for higher level thinking. They end up like putting themselves in a panic attack because they're trying to do high level thinking every 5 minutes rather than every 5 hours or 5 days that they used to. And it's not creating better work. People are getting AI burnout by just going faster than they can process.
I've definitely felt the fatigue, and I definitely, for that reason, almost went like information diet. Like, so a lot of the stuff that like we're programming is, one, I want to be able to set it and then go take a walk and then come back and then sit down and think about it again.
That's great.
But also, like, most of the automation is not necessarily to clear out my work. It's to clear out, I have 10 of this shirt. I don't like even to decide what, like, Allie, I think I've even told this story on the pod many times before, but she goes, will you change your damn shirt you're wearing? I'm like, oh, I have 10 of that shirt. They all look.
That's the Steve Jobs approach. I love that too. That's another part of the cognitive load. Yeah.
Right. I want my brain to have as much capacity on its prefrontal cortex as humanly possible. And so, like, most of the stuff on Drudgery, I'm going, not how can I get my work out of the way, but how can I get everything that isn't meaningful work out of the way? Like, I want to automate my grocery shopping type stuff. I want to automate, again, the clothing I pick out, so that like my brain is there in the morning and it can make the hard decisions, and I can put and burn as many calories as possible there. So I can go, hey, I did really high level, only decisioning that I can do decisioning stuff at the forefront.
So that brings us to the last point that I wanted to make. I think you were getting right there where, have you heard of the Terminator versus Iron Man analogy? The Terminator versus Iron Man analogy is that, like, the Terminator is this autonomous AI agent out there, right? Mm-hmm. You give it a task, it does its thing. Mm-hmm. The Iron Man is Tony Stark, a human wrapped in technology with Jarvis AI in his ear, so that it's giving him information and superpowers that he wouldn't otherwise have as a human. Yeah. It's turning Tony into the human. So my third point in the human first AI marketing part is that I'm still doing AI marketing. I'm just trying to do it in a human first way. I want to make our employees, our marketing super powered, not somehow replicate or replace my marketing with an artificial human. I don't think that really kind of works, and there's a whole bunch of reasons we could dive into there.
I like that. I talk to my kid a lot, who's 8-year-old, but we talk about how the best superheroes are definitely Iron Man and Black Widow, because neither of them have superpowers. They're just smart.
Just Batman too. He's got a couple of those have $1 billion, which helps. It does
help, but it's the intelligence that sets them apart, right? It's like not the God. It's like Tony's just a badass. That's all there is to it.
But he's funny and he's charismatic and he makes his own decisions, and it keeps like human control and empathy in the process. Like, there's a whole lot of reasons why the Iron Man approach works better. And so when people ask, like, I'm not anti-AI. What am I doing in AI marketing that's different than what other people are doing? I think it's the difference between what AI increases human connection, increases trust, and like our credibility, and which ones decrease it, and then applying those strategically, doing that thinking up front.
So give me some examples on that, or like asked differently, what are most people doing that are kind of getting it wrong, right? Like, what's the mistake that people are making, and or what works, and what's the focus that should be kind of.
Yeah, we can get into some specific examples. In short, I think it's pretty obvious that there's some things that we want AI to do, and that there's some things we don't want AI to do. If we have to do bomb disposal or hazardous mining, those are probably good jobs for AI and robots, right? Like, no human should be doing that job. If you got to take your spouse or partner out for an anniversary dinner, you probably shouldn't send your AI avatar. That's probably something you're going to want to show up for, or any hot date. That's something you want to do in person as a human, not send a AI replacement or robot. So if we can agree that there are things on both ends of the spectrum, then what we get is this messy middle. So what I recommend doing is like a human plus AI capability map of like what tasks and things in your organization are humans better at than AI? Which ones are AI better at than humans? And then there's a large group of stuff where AI plus human actually gets the best result. And there's another corner of things that are like neither should be doing this job, right? Just things neither AI nor human can or should do at this any given moment in time. And I think leaders especially need to spend some time on that map and decide what is the magic of our business that humans actually bring better value. What are some things AI can do? So I'll give you some specific examples now. Like, transcription and translation, it takes forever for humans to do this. I did this. I work for a company where we created content in 17 different languages, and everything that I created had to be typed out by a human, 10 years ago, then translated by 17 people that speak 17 other languages, and then rebuilt by people now that can be done in like one click. You just go, oh, make Mike speak Spanish, and he's doing it. Well, that's amazing technology. That saves us a ton of time, and it helps us reach more customers that we were already doing things to do. So AI is better at that than our human processes were. There's also things where just human context and creativity, knowing when to break the rules, knowing how to connect. I think we can do like AI chatbots or service things to a certain extent, but when somebody hits the zero and the operator and they want to talk to a human, now's the time to bring up a human, not an AI avatar robot. Like if the AI could have answered the question, it would have already done it by then. Yeah. And I had one of those experiences. I went to a hotel and I called the customer success line because we were locked out of the room, and I could tell it was an AI robot right away. It was an answering machine service, and not necessarily right away. It went a couple of questions, and I was like, wait, this is not a human. And I called back and was like, can I talk to a human? Get the manager's manager? Like, what's going on here? No, nothing. They just kept taking my information, saying that somebody would call back, and I waited there for an hour, locked out of my hotel room after a long trip. That's not a good customer experience. So I think we got to realize like, what are those things? And in marketing, I think coming up with the ideas, the messages, understanding the pain points and the empathy, defining what you stand for, what the problem is you're trying to solve, and who you're trying to solve it for. Those are key human parts to good marketing. The other stuff of like, take a podcast like this or a conversation with your client or a sales call and turn that into a custom sales presentation, 100 different marketing assets, allowing people to read, watch, or listen, depending on how they like to consume your information. All of that is an amazing way to create more accessibility and more interesting content than anything we've ever been able to do before.
Agreed. Clever. I like that. When people are kind of getting started and it's like the first 30 days or whatever inside of an engagement, kind of what do you start doing? Like, how would you deploy a roadmap where they're going, okay, I don't know anything about it, but go.
Yeah. I think there's two big buckets for me that I always start with, and I just call it context engineering, really. Is like, if we're going to do anything with AI, the problem is AI was trained on everything on the internet, basically, right? We all know most of the internet is crap. And even if it wasn't, I use salespeople as the example here. You know that over 60% of salespeople miss quota now in 2025. The numbers are in. If you took the average, if you trained AI salesperson on every salesperson on it would miss its quota. Yeah. Right. So what we got to say is, well, how do we train it on the top 10% of salespeople, or maybe our best salesperson? So where I start is I interview the founder, the top salesperson, the best client, whoever has the real stories about why this business exists. What difference does it make? What context do we need to know that makes your business better or different than anything else out there that AI couldn't make, that AI wouldn't know about your company? And find that information first. And a lot of those are hidden in conversations that already exist. You're just not recording them and transcribing them and never had before the last 3 years any way to process that information. But one of my favorite tools is Google Notebook, that now we can also take all your documents. Give me your employee manual, give me your brand guidelines, give me all the information that nobody ever had time to read. Somebody went to the trouble of making it, but nobody ever read, page 97 of the employee manual. We can have AI remember that and just either fix our stuff to be compliant or remind us when, rule 97 comes up and make sure it follows all the rules. So I think humans are great at creativity. AI is great at following the rules. Let's leverage it for some of that stuff. But I think we have to train it like a new employee. Is that fair?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, again, I think like the dissemination of most employees is actually going to result in new companies. And I think a lot of the human engagement is to some extent going to get even more kind of personalized. Like, yes, we can scale, but that means we're going to do it faster. It still is going to get a lot of that kind of one-to-one attention. Like theoretically, like, hey, we're going to figure out, like, you want a pair of jeans. We're going to have the AI do the automation to figure out what size and everything is the perfect fit, but someone's going to actually hand them to you.
Oh, that's interesting.
Just because there is going to be something about that panache, we're just going, okay, did we get everything? They have the ability to, again, capture a lot of that kind of context, as you said.
I think it would be cool. I think that would be a really awesome experience. I've said that with content, we're all not going to be watching the same movie here within probably the next 5 years.
Oh yeah.
That you and I both open up Netflix, we hit play on the latest Ryan Gosling movie, and you're going to see a different movie than I do because it can customize to my preferences. The time I have allotted, the way I like to watch things, or even the actors that I think are in it. Yours could have Ryan Gosling, and mine could have Ryan Reynolds, and we could be watching the same movie at the same time, and it could be custom created that way. I love your idea of the jeans too, because we're living in a world where personalized, like, marketing messages and the product can exist. And so we don't need these big channels, these big one size fits all solutions.
I think there's been a concept called the long tail, and largely software, right? That's been kind of like disseminating. There haven't been fewer and fewer blockbuster products every kind of year. And a lot of those kind of tools, even like the large LLM organizations, like, they are big, but they're kind of in the spot where they only can accelerate. If they slow down, they're irrelevant a week later. So everyone's like, oh yeah, if I was Anthropic, right? And I'm like, just a heads up, they're irrelevant in a week if they pause at all. Like, they will be forgotten. And to that extent, again, hypothesis I would think is there's actually going to be a ton of, kind of to your point, like 10, 12, less than 100 person companies with very, very, very targeted niches, very, very engaged customer base. But they're going to be doing most of their work to retain them, because everyone's going to have a lot of the same tools on outreach and everything else. And they're really going to be saying, how do you differentiate and genuinely do my thing my way? It needs to be not just like personalized in the sense that you like said, hey, Dan, like, I'm in Utah, like, cool, how's the weather in Utah? It's like, no. You're going to have the fact that I have really fat calves on my pants and really wide waist and, whatever else or whatever that like very much fits me. And again, it's going to be genuinely kind of a personalized thing, lower volume in many ways, but everything faster.
I think you're hitting on something that I've noticed. I could be biased here, but from my perspective, I've worked in all sizes of companies. I think there's a really big advantage to small businesses right now. If you're one of those mega players, I don't know what you're going to do, man. You're screwed. You got to spend billions of dollars and try and stay ahead. Like, even these major brands that have been around forever, like Levi's jeans or whatever, you better figure out AI and you better race to this finish, because somebody's going to do something cool and disrupt your space. And if you're a micro business, if you're a one-person business, I think it's also challenging. You're going to have to wait for technology to shake out a little bit, pick the winners that get adopted, and do your best to do your thing and good work. And I think most of them will be okay, but there's not an outsized advantage because you don't have the resources or team, and you're going to have to be a jack of all trades to like really get ahead. Plus, anybody in the world now kind of has access to the same tools that you do. So even if you can figure something out with AI, so can a million other people. And so we're seeing that with like jobs right now, where there's 1,000 applications to one open position because everybody can use AI to submit their resume without
Yes,
ever
I've
looking at
literally
it,
had to
right?
deal with that. It's a pain in the ass. You'll literally have 1,500 applicants to a single job, and you're going,
Yeah.
ugh,
And AI is
nauseating.
filtering them, and AI is writing the responses to the filter, and it's all a
Yeah.
mess. You got to get back to humans. That's where I think the small business advantage comes in. Is that like
Mhm.
you could build a team and you could have the resources to actually pick up the phone and call these applicants, and somebody's going to
Mhm.
need to like actually do the human parts here, and it's going
Mhm.
to take a little bit of work, but companies that can organize those kind of things and be nimble enough to not have to spend $1 billion or not have to compete on a major level, but really get local and meet some people and do some physical networking and all of those kind of things that have made small business successful, I think there's still an advantage there.
There's some weird algebra that goes into the tools change, but like even like the personalized example, people will send out the stuff. Hey, cool, Dan, saw you went to Olympus High School. Great, go
Right.
Titans. And you're just like, you don't know who the hell I am, and it, to some extent, backfires. And now the incremental cost of content is almost zero, and really good
It is
content in terms
zero.
of
Yeah.
like digital quality. But I think that literally people want proof. Like they say authenticity, but I think what authenticity kind of means to some extent is I want to see that you spent money, time, and energy on me, and I will reward you with my attention. Right? Like
Well, that's
there's a
where I am with
thing.
my inbox right now. And I think we're just going to see it spreading out, right? I
Yeah.
can tell I get 30 messages a day of, like you said, hey, Mike, saw on LinkedIn that you have a podcast or whatever. We're an overseas podcasting edit. Delete. If you didn't spend any time on the message, I don't have any obligation to
Yeah.
give you any of my time to even read it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But
Yes.
on the other hand, if I can tell that somebody did actually spend the time to research me and reach out, or they've noticed a podcast, and I don't know if you get I'm sure you do, you get these messages where like, I saw your human first AI marketing podcast episode you did with ABC
Mhm.
person. I'm like, I can still tell that you didn't actually listen to it because that's not what that was about or not what I'm about. So I think when you get those magical moments, there is a
Yeah.
reciprocation where you can say, oh, this person took the time to write me a message, I'm going to take the time to write them one back. Right.
That is potentially one of the insulators of having the job kind of long term. As I go, as soon as someone figures it out, we raise the bar on what we're willing to expect. And it's moving really, really quickly. Like
Yeah.
stuff that is garbage right now was like gold standard a year and a half ago.
Do you think we'll always
Um,
be able to tell? Or do you think there is a point where that bar moves so far that we
I
can't
mean,
tell?
so one of the things that I've noticed in terms of like how my thinking has shifted on that, just going like the momentum and the trend and the evolution is actually becoming more and more important. So, will they ever be able to? They already can't, depending. I can go to my parents, my mom and dad, and they can't tell at all. Simultaneously, I can go to like my team and they're pretty savvy, but we can still, and then the stuff that I find that I notice and then realize after the fact, I'm like, oh, they snuck one by me. I'm actually like,
Yeah.
hey, attaboy, like to some extent, like, hey, good for you on finding a novel approach is usually the thing. But everyone that comes after that now gets
Right.
punished for like, so the cool thing is that novelty is the interesting part. So will we be able to tell? We're always going to be into the, hey, I think I can detect most of them. And the new trick is, all right, what is that next? Because like one of the biggest things that's always been fascinating to me is like word of mouth marketing.
Yeah.
Because you go like, wait, what are the ingredients there? And you go, I don't know exactly, like not in the sense that like, oh, build you a viral ad. It's like someone says that, check, see if your wallet is still in your pocket.
Right.
But like most of the time, it's a combination of an emotional message that is highly relevant to you. So it's very specifically interesting, well known, easy to understand. Highly emotional trigger. People have exponential reactions to emotional and surprise and novel factors. So if you can get emotion and surprise relevance into the same kind of package and then the tool to share. So either a really simple message or something that's easy to repeat or whatever.
Yeah.
I go, those are like the four dimensions, if you will, that are on kind of that viral message that continually evolves because as soon as something becomes common, it's by definition no longer novel, and now you've got to raise the bar for me.
That's
right?
why I've never chased that. I started this interview going all the way back to my LinkedIn book because we've seen this trend so many times, right? I mean, when the telephone was invented, we got telemarketers. It's like we get email, we get spam, we get the internet, we got influencers. Like we know that trend, and I know there are people like Gary Vee that can keep chasing the next shortcut and keep finding ones. I don't want to play that game. I feel like it's a race to the bottom. It's exhausting, and like there are no shortcuts to trust and real great relationships and referrals. The secret to referrals is you got to do the hard part. You got to like do the work. You got to make magic for one of your clients in a way that they want to talk about it. Right. And I think that like, I keep calling it the magic trick because like the first time you see a magic trick, you go, oh, that's cool. And then the second time you see it, you go, I've seen that one before. Or like a joke. It just doesn't hit the same way. And I think a lot of these AI tools right now are magic tricks. The first time you see it, you go, oh, cool. The second time you go, nah, they just spammed me with AI. That's not it. And so I think for me, the answer is how do we go back to what works? And I think you mentioned it with like your referral process and those aspects. But I think also I've done a lot of work with like play and humor and understanding like what resonates and connects humans to other humans. And it's a lot of those things you mentioned, but mostly it's not trying to take the shortcut. It's building trust with credibility, reliability, authenticity, and generosity in a way that other people notice and that they care and they want to pay attention to.
You wrote, and so you use that word, playful. You wrote Playful Humans? Is that the book?
That's correct. Yeah.
Well done, sir.
We've already mentioned a few things from the book about the different types of work and then, my definition of play, but I interviewed over 250 people that play for a living, people that are like magicians, jugglers, voiceover actors, rappers, like even marketers and other kind of, fun people. I'm like, how are you pulling off, this magic trick of working for a living, or playing for a living? And I learned a lot of lessons along the way, but it really influences the marketing because most of it is just not very hard. They didn't find a secret. They just did the work. And the only way to get good at something is to get bad at it first. and that's the secret.
Who's the happiest of all the 250? Was there a specific field? You're like crab fisherman. You need to go be a crab fisherman. Like,
oh man, no, I don't think there's an answer, but you reminded me of my favorite quote that I put in the book is a Supreme Court justice named Howard Thurman said, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and then go do that, because what the world needs is more people who have come alive. And so whether it's the guy that was surfing with his dog or magicians or just people, I got to interview, because we're of similar age, the voiceover actor who is the Transformers, plays Megatron and Optimus Prime. And he was in the original Saturday morning G.I. Joe cartoons. He was General Hawk on those. And I'm like, dude, he's living his best life. He's sitting in a fun recording studio in California, doing voices for video games and stuff and cartoons, and then spends the rest of his day however he wants with his kids and out on the beach and stuff. And I'm like, great life, killing it. But that wouldn't be everybody's best life, right? That isn't the right answer for anybody. Somebody else would be like, oh, I'd rather be a professional athlete. Or I interviewed NFL, players, and, the dog surfing one is one that stands out. Like, I think if you can get your dog to stand on the end of a surfboard and you win competitions and get sponsorships and stuff for that, your life has got to be pretty good. Huh?
Love that. Did you find any tricks to actually finding kind of that muse? Like, so if your kid's coming up or whatever, because like, I mean, I find that like the entrepreneurship to me, they go, are you an entrepreneur? I go, yeah, but just so you know, I don't consider that a compliment. It's a mental illness as far as I'm concerned. I can't do anything else. It's not like a badge of honor. It's just like, yeah, this is happening. Because it's just, that's what my
you're unemployable by anyone else. That's what makes that happen. I relate to that. There are some tricks in the book about, how to find those things. I think a couple of short tips I would say. Number one is there's probably something that everybody says that like you're good at that you go, that can't be a job. That's too easy. Right. I've kind of felt that way about kind of three things in my life, and I tied them all together into one career. But I do public speaking. I love being on a microphone, and a lot of people find public speaking scary. I happen to be like gifted with computers when I was a young kid. My mom won one in a radio station contest in the mid 80s, and I had to learn how to program it to make it work. And I just figured it out, and I understand how they work and stuff. And so that's easy for me. And then the third one is my dad was a professional salesperson, and sales is a lot of something that a lot of people find hard. And so if you're good at it and it's easy for you, like you never have to work another day the rest of your life. You're never gonna have to want for a job. I hate that line that like you never have to work again for the rest of your life, because there's still days that suck. But when I combine all three of those together, that to me becomes like my superhero power that nobody else has. And so I think you got to kind of deconstruct for yourself of like what experiences, for me, being bullied as a child and other things made me figure out how to be likable. Right. And how to be funny to not get punched in the face is a valuable skill. But I also had like a grandmother who was really smart and really funny and introduced me to people I call creative nerds, like Steve Martin or the Mythbusters or the Bare Naked Ladies, and just people that are like intelligent, but also not afraid to be silly. And I was like, that's my spirit animal right there, a creative nerd.
I like it.
And so I try to, in my work now, mix in both sides of those things. The three superpowers combined, but then also that creative nerd personality. And I think people just need to like do some work on it. Go find it, but don't write things off that it's like, oh, it's too easy, or I could never get paid for that. Those are all problems that can be solved. And there's no one right answer either. Can I take one more sidebar?
Go for it.
All right. It's one of my personal pet peeves where people, I think, adults ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they're looking for a role, right? But studies now show that kids graduating college now will have over 9 different careers and jobs throughout their career, and 7 of them have not been invented yet.
No, wow.
Like for you and I, podcaster wasn't a thing when we graduated college. But also, I think the what do you want to do with your life is the wrong question. The better one I like is how do you want to be for the rest of your life? And that's really why I wrote Playful Humans. And I like that creative nerdery brand for myself is I can do that. I can be playful. I can be creative. I can be a nerd in whatever I pursue or whatever role I happen to be in at the moment. And there's no one right answer of like, oh, you just get this job and then you're set for life. It would be boring if it was.
I think especially right now, just because I feel like almost everyone, at least in a white collar job right now, I just go heads up in 5 years, it doesn't exist, at least how it exists right now. Right. So it might still exist, but not as it currently sits right now. Right. So.
Yeah. But think about how you want to spend your time and how you want to be and why.
On that one, I don't know, do you have sleepless nights on this stuff? Just going like, what does either my company or my job look like in the near future?
Not necessarily sleepless nights. I think anybody that's an entrepreneur and owns their own business knows. I love the name of the podcast, by the way, is like, I feel like if there was a map, everybody had it. If it was clearly defined, it wouldn't be any fun. And it's another concept from the Playful Humans book is this order versus chaos spectrum. And too much chaos is bad. Too much order is boring. What makes life interesting is actually the movement between the two. So the faster you can go between order and chaos and feel like you're controlling it, the more interesting your life will be. And so I feel like being in AI marketing right now is controlled chaos. And I think it's going to be interesting from here on out. But I don't see a point where it would be interesting if it was all order. If the problem gets solved and we don't need marketing anymore, then this job is over. But short of that, I'm not sure that happens in our lifetime. Short of that, I think there's always going to be something interesting.
I dig that. Good answers, sir. Good answers.
What's your take? Do you think it's all, are you trying to make as much money as you can now so that when we all get to like singularity or universal basic income, you're going to be set up?
No, I definitely think it's worth getting your financial house in order right now, just because it is so uncertain. And
Yeah.
I do think a lot of people are going to absolutely be displaced, just because I do think there is a significant rate of change that I don't know that enough people can be retrained in the amount of time that they have.
Correct.
So I do worry about a lot of people, just because the reality is, as you mentioned it earlier, that there's average. I just go, yeah. And the people that are below average are going to get fired, and they're going to be let go. And simultaneously, like, my team makes and does more now and is smaller than they've been in the last 2 or 3 years. And I go to like hire people. I see 2,000 applications, and then all of a sudden some technological innovation takes place. And I go, holy crap, guys, we can just do this with our existing team. And all of a sudden we're that much more productive. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's measured in weeks, not even months or years. It's literally like last week to this week was order of magnitude more productive. So I do get worried, and I am like generally a pessimist. I mean, the funny thing, you were talking about Netflix earlier, and like if you switch between my wife's and my Netflix profiles, like we have the joke around the house that like I'm a creature of the dark, because mine is like all true crime, murder mystery, and comedians, and then hers is all like playful, fun, happy stuff, right?
Yeah. Bright colors.
Performance, like, you know, musicals and stuff like that. And so a ton of it where I just go, man, I think there's a ton of people that are not anywhere near ready for how hard they're going to get hit. And I think a lot of, by definition, half the people are below average. And
Yeah.
I think they're going to get displaced. Simultaneously, I'm a huge believer in the muse. Like, again, like burn the map in a ton of cases. It is, there was a lot of reasons that we went with that. And a lot of it, the reason that we liked it was it didn't have one specific meaning. Like,
Right.
part of it was, well, if you've already committed the map to memory, let's use it for something else useful. It wasn't necessarily let's pretend there isn't a map. It was like, no, that's foolish. From my perspective, it was largely we found the utility from it. But then simultaneously, a lot of the people that I wanted to talk to were muse makers. I've done podcasts as part of like my job before. And last time it was really successful. We landed some of the biggest deals like ever in that industry, period.
Nice.
And the thought leadership and everything from talking to that group was really, really powerful. And I stopped doing it because I talked to people and they booked people that like had like canned responses and stuff like that. And I just went, just a heads up, I can't fake this shit.
No, I interviewed a guy that was a billionaire, literally a billionaire with a B, who hadn't read his own book. Told me ahead of time. And I was just like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, what's happening? So we had like 4 or 5 of those in a row, and I just went, guys, this is not fun. And so like I've always had,
good for you,
entrepreneur thing. I've always had a fire in my belly for other people that had a fire in their belly, where I'm like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I can't do anything else. And so I wanted to talk to those people, because like, even if you go back, this goes back to like 1999. I remember reading a book called Never Hire Anyone Without Me. And they were citing Google at the time that was going, heads up, like your degree and stuff like that does not predict your likelihood of success. Yeah. Someone's level of passion actually was more predictive, because even if someone didn't have training in something right now, if they were genuinely interested in it, they'll figure it out. So they may not be the most trained person right now, but they'll actually accelerate faster than the people who know it but don't like it.
That's another reason I wrote Playful Humans, is just that, like, the creativity, the confidence, the human connections, the physical and mental conditioning you need to survive in this world now is different than the institutional education system that we grew up in, that has existed for the last 20 years. So we don't need humans to be robots anymore. We don't need you to do one job, stand on a line and keep pushing the same button for 40 years. Like, we need you to be creative. We need you to solve problems. We need you to think.
And I want to work, and I want to be, again, if that person's dropping off my jeans, I want them to love fucking jeans, right? Like, it's absolutely just magnetic. And you just go, okay, cool. I'm not even a big jeans person. Now I love jeans, you know. It's like, or at least I love these jeans, you know. So I look forward to that. That's my hope. And I do think a lot of people are going to get displaced until they actually find that thing, where it's like, you're going to get displaced until you're above average. So you don't just have to find something necessarily that you're interested in, but you need to be above average in it by hook or by crook.
That's a great line.
So I'm kind of excited by that. So just really quickly, where can people find you, Mr. Mike?
Yeah, I'm an internet marketer, so it's not very hard. If you search Mike Montague or Avenue 9 on just about any LLM or search engine, you'll find me. But since you listen to podcasts and you made it all to the end of this one, go check out Dan on the Human First AI Marketing podcast. Anywhere you're watching or listening to this one, it's got over like 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. So I recommend the video, and we do the highlight clips and shorts there too. So you don't have to spend the whole half hour if you don't want to. But certainly, if you're a small to medium sized business and you want to learn how to use AI to punch above your weight and compete with big brands, that's what I help people do. Like I said, tell their story better through context engineering and figure out ways to train the AI to do what you want it to do and do it in your voice to keep high quality work and keep your customers first.
Love that. Okay, one last question. One or two people, who do you follow that you find engaging and the most kind of like motivating to listen to? Who do you find the most interesting that get your attention?
Man, marketing wise, it's Seth Godin and Rory Sutherland. They're both
Nice.
just really great, entertaining speakers and deep thinkers. They know buyer psychology and will teach you things. AI, I would go with Lex Friedman is probably, interviewing the biggest names and the top of the people. And he's got a good nerdy podcast and a good heart. Yeah, exactly. And then there's a couple of, I think it's Superhuman AI is a great newsletter. And there's another one that I subscribe to too. It's Shelley Palmer, and awesome newsletter, like is out in Silicon Valley, cutting edge, keeping track of all things in tech, and has a really cool way of thinking and talking about it. So those are the four I would recommend.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mikey. I appreciate your time, my friend. Thank you.
Great conversation. Thanks for it.